Okay. Okay. We're going to try this. This is going to be the first of who knows if this is actually going to take off. The screen looks weird recording me. I probably should have set up my camera. I'm Kayla. I am a former special education teacher, former para, former education specialist. I have worked with a lot of different people with disabilities, or a lot of different disabilities. They all are in the category of extensive support needs. And, California was expensive. We moved. I couldn't bring my job with me. I had two kids. And I realized, I guess I realized before that, that inclusion is just so important to me, um, for everyone, not just disabilities, but cultures and age. I don't know, everything. Um, and so I am not really, I'm not really quite sure why I'm here today. I have literally no plan on what I'm going to talk about, but I feel like doing it this way makes it maybe just a little bit more genuine that I literally have no idea what I'm doing with the podcast at all. I literally Googled things and this is how I found the things that I'm using now. So we'll see how this goes. But I guess I wanted to jump on and talk about how where inclusion starts now comes from, as that is what my business is. Um, I officially just registered to trademark it this week, and something else that I can't seem to. Oh, I just had I just had my 1000th post. I don't seem to know how to say that word, on Instagram, which is crazy because Instagram has kind of been this like I have a very love-hate relationship with all social media. But that is not why I'm here. I'm here because I want to talk about inclusion and I want to help people go out there and have conversations with people who aren't for inclusion or who don't know how to be inclusive, um, and find ways to raise inclusive kids and live an inclusive life because I very much believe that my happiness stems from the relationships that I make and the people that I meet along the way. And obviously, I don't have an answer for everything, and I don't think I live the most perfect life, but there are things that I do that I wish people would do them, to like be happier. I don't know. But this is also what makes me happy. It's not going to make everyone happy. Then there we are. So if you're looking for a podcast with super strong opinions, this isn't it. I love to say that I am the just the biggest Libra, that I am the scale and I can hear both sides and just be like, yeah. However, strong opinion, inclusion, for inclusion. Uh, so yes, so I just thought these tabs have been up on my computer for weeks. Might as well start this off by explaining what inclusion starts now comes from, like my origin story. And then I'm just going to start picking a topic and it's going to be short. I don't like long podcasts, they drive me nuts. So I'm just going to kind of give you the little blurb about myself. So, even as a child, I was very into teaching. So, when I got to college and I didn't know what major to choose, my mom was the one that was like, well, yeah, liberal studies, you want to be a teacher. No idea. Um, I just was like, yeah, sure, cool. And then throughout my undergrad experience, I volunteered with a group called KEEN, which stands for Kids Enjoy Exercise Now. And I started working with kids, with autism. And I, or autistic kids. The language was different when I was working with this population, over a decade ago. Um, But a lot of them used sign language to talk and or to communicate, and I was like, great, I know sign language because I happened to learn it in high school. And then like things just kind of fell together. And then there was a student who is deaf blind who needed a signing aid, or a signing para. And so I got that job and I absolutely loved it. And then it just kind of continued on the journey of, grad school. Uh, and my grad program was very focused on inclusion. And I thought that was like something that was commonly practiced everywhere. And it's not. Um, and so I was shocked when I first started teaching and my students were just like not included in everybody's thought of, assemblies and parties and celebrations and just like the community. So during my years of teaching, I worked at a few different schools. We ended up moving, and my last school was just really hard to work with. They kind of really needed a teacher. My whole interview was about inclusion. And then once I was in, they were like, well, not your kids. Your kids are too hard. And that is the mindset that just drove me crazy for that whole year. Really was hard to feel positive and even notice all the positive things that did happen with me and my students at that school site because there was so much pushback and so much arguing between me and the district that it just ended up not being a very good fit. So then I worked with deaf-blind state projects, which I absolutely loved doing that. But then because I moved out of state, I was like, maybe I should, inclusion starts now. Maybe I should just, make this a small business kind of thing. And I officially did last year. And so now I don't know. I'm just trying to figure out what I'm going to do. What led to this podcast, which I don't even want to call it a podcast, but I mean, I guess that's what it um, is that I try to create content like every day on social media, to basically fall into this algorithm nightmare. But someone convinced me that podcasts give a lot of more content. You got videos, you got audio, you got all this fun stuff. Um, but I didn't think that my first one, I was just going to record while sitting in bed. I had my hernias fixed last week and I have to rest so much. And then I was like, oh, perfect. I should start a podcast while I'm like resting in bed. So, um, there's that. And then there was something else I was talking about as a kid. Um, Yeah, I'm not quite sure. Anyways, well, so that's my origin story of why I am here today. I do think it's interesting because usually when I meet people like at conferences or whatever, when people work in the disability realm, it's, oh, caught my thumbs up. Uh, they they usually have like a family member with a disability. Um, and that's usually how change starts, that people start noticing they're like, well, this is my child or my uncle or my sister or whatever. And, why aren't they being included? That's not really fair. Like, we can make accommodations at home. Why can't our community make, basic accommodations? And for some reason, that wasn't I don't think I ever really connected that until much later in my career because now, as a specialist in this field, I can definitely see how I connected to some people that were probably just never diagnosed or, gosh, I don't know. I don't really like this whole thing where I'm going with this. I don't even know if I'm going to figure out how to edit this or if everyone's just going to get an unedited splurge of me talking. Splurge? Purge? I don't know. Um, okay, let's get back on track. So, what I do want to share is I want to share my first experience with a person with a disability because I think that shaped a lot of who I am today. And now you can see my little microphone. That shaped, it's just that shaped a lot. So in elementary school, the students with disabilities were put into, their segregated classroom. Sometimes they came out at lunch. They had their own recess. As a person without a disability, I did not see them, other than sometimes during lunch. And it was, oh, gosh, I keep thumbs upping the screen. So sometimes during lunch. And there was this one girl, I forgot her name now, but her parents knew my friend's parents. And so my friend was having a birthday, and her parents invited this girl with Down syndrome, and or diagnosed with Down syndrome. And they invited her to the birthday party. So we all get to the birthday party before this little girl diagnosed with Down syndrome. I need to just think of a name for her. Mary. So Mary shows up. Oh my gosh. So we all show up before Mary, like when we were supposed to. And the mom sits us down before Mary shows up and is like, okay, everyone. So the birthday girl is friends with this girl named Mary, but Mary's kind of different than us. And I think she might have said she's diagnosed with Down syndrome. And she's like, she does communicate differently, and it might be different for you. And, if you get scared or nervous, just let me know, and like I'll hang out with her. Like, you guys don't need to worry about it. And this was like not over 30 years ago. This was like 25 to 30 years ago. Somewhat, no, 20, probably 25 years ago. And looking back at that, like, that mom was taking such an inclusive step that I felt like was not happening at that time. So it was like this woman was very much ahead of her time to think, as a mother of children without disabilities, that she reached out to this family and said, bring your child. She is included. She is a friend of my daughter's. She is included in this. And before I even go back and say how I would have changed it today, we're going to continue through the story. So she comes, and, of course, we're all kind of nervous because we don't know how to talk to her. No one really told us how to talk to her. And so she kind of like did her own thing. And sometimes she'd play with the birthday girl, and then sometimes she'd play with the birthday girl's mom. And that was kind of it. And then we went swimming, and she wore like a float. What do you call those? Like the arm things and the like puddle jumpers. I don't know. The thing where it's like a life vest on a kid, but it's not like those big boat life vests. So like you can like kind of swim a little bit easier. So we all went to a pool, and she came up to me and was like trying, I think, well, she was, as a, I don't know, second, third grader, whatever age I was, it was scary. She came over and was trying to hold on to me, and I was like swimming in the deep end where I couldn't reach. And so I freaked out, and I like pushed her and just swam away. And I remember breathing all hard and being pretty scared. And I told the mom, and the mom was like, oh, I think she was just trying to give you a hug. And I just was like, okay. And then that was it. And then eventually she went home. And I remember feeling like a sense of relief that after she left, I was like, okay, she's not just going to come up to me anymore. But looking back at that, I was scared. The whole time I felt this fear, because I had no idea how to communicate to her. This was the first person I ever met who was diagnosed with Down syndrome. And yeah, so then, just throughout life with all of my schooling, it was a pretty segregated system. There was never children with disabilities in my classroom. And you would see them at lunch, and it was kind of just like, that's nice. Like, they get to have lunch with us. Like, it was a very segregated schooling, education. And later, after learning, how to be a teacher, I looked back at that moment of my first experience, just thinking like, man, I wish that the mom never put fear into my head. I wish she didn't say, you know, and if you're scared, let me know. Because in my little kid head, I thought, okay, I might get scared. I need to let her know. Um, and instead, saying something like, okay, you know, what was the name I gave her? Mary? So Mary's coming, and she communicates a little bit differently. So, these are some things that you can say. Maybe you can wave or something. And, she is a little bit more physical because that's how she communicates. But if it's too much, like, just say, I don't know the mom's name either. Say blah, blah. Like, can you help me with this conversation? Saying stuff that makes it positive, that focuses on the language of like what I'm saying to myself in my head as a kid, and then what to say to the adult or what to say to the other student to get the help, the support that's going to be more positive. I need to now turn off my alarm because I have an alarm. Okay. So that was first. And then second, when she came in, it would have been so nice to see like how the birthday girl communicated to her. Like we kind of just all it was like integration. It was like Mary was there to be a part of it, but she wasn't actually being with all of her peers. She was kind of like off to the side being babysat. It's kind of like putting a child in a classroom isn't inclusion. It's just putting them in the classroom to say like, well, they're there. Breathing the same air is not practicing inclusion. So the pool situation. That's another one that I wish, instead of kind of disregarding that I was then scared because I was, a young kid swimming in the deep end, someone's holding on to me, that I don't know very well. Like it was a scary situation, but I remember just thinking like it felt very dismissive that I was like, oh, well, she was coming in for a hug. And I was like, I don't know. I didn't want a hug. Like there wasn't a lot of consent conversation. But that whole moment not only had me appreciate the challenges that come with inclusive practices and like learning, what is the best practice to genuinely form relationships? How do we do that? Because that is a tricky area and it looks different for everybody literally every second of the day. And how do we work on communication and behaviors and then mindsets? Like there's so much work to be done with us as a community. So looking back at this, and I would, for all the people listening, I would love for you to kind of look back and think of like the first person that you met who had a disability and how was it inclusive? How could it have been done better? How could it have been not a person with a disability being placed with you? That doesn't make sense. My questions are going off the rails. I guess just reflecting on your first experience, because I am assuming that most people don't have an inclusive experience from birth. Even if you have a sibling or a parent or you have a disability, there is a lot of ableism embedded in the medical system, the education system, everywhere. So there has to be some experience where like either you first noticed the differences, you first noticed how different people get treated, and I think that's really important to reflect on and just kind of see how you would have done it differently, how that might have shaped your own mindsets, because obviously we all have our own biased mindsets. That's life, and like where to go from here. So that's pretty much all I have to say. Um, I don't know. I just feel like I'm going to ramble now. I think the next conversation I really want to have is about religion, in and comparing it to inclusion, which I don't feel like that really made sense. I do want to say that I do not identify as a religious person, but I have studied a lot of religion. My family used to go to church. I actually went to church last week as like a secret shopper to help out a neighbor to like let them know what as an outsider what I thought of their church. Uh, but I'm also very into language and cults and community and forming relationships with people because it's important. I mean, all of the happy trainings of like how to trainings, studies, all the happy studies that teach us that have like evaluated what makes people happy. One of the things is always communication or communication. Is your community. It's who you're friends with and who like in your different levels of friendships and I know a lot of people talk about anxiety and feeling introverted and I think there's ways to still be introverted and quiet and anxious and still have a community that you are happily a part of. And I don't know if that's where our journey is going to go together. I feel like journey is a funny word that I keep saying. Well, that's it. I thought I'd hit 30 minutes. I'm not because I just feel like I'm rambling now. I don't know how this works if people ask me questions, but Inclusion Starts Now is what everything is called except for this podcast, which is called like Kayla Talks Inclusion or something. So we'll see where this goes. We'll see if I save this. We'll see. I don't know. You might be a part of something beautiful here. So you already are. Thanks for being here. Inclusion starts now. Wait, nope. Inclusion starts with you, and I just want to help. This is Kayla, and we'll talk soon. Bye.